Hey everybody, I'm Rob. This is Comic Book Chronicles. This is my desk, which is not really a desk. And this is Morphenomenal, How the Power Rangers Conquered the World. It's a new book by Joshua Moore that's out now. And these are 10 things that I learned from this book. So yeah, I'm a Power Rangers geek. I've followed the franchise since pretty much its infancy, almost since the first episode aired in 1993. And as such, when I was presented with this book about the history of the franchise, I already knew a lot of the intricacies and behind-the-scenes gossip and drama that it covers. But even a veteran ranger must be open to learning new things. And indeed, there were things that this book taught me that I didn't know. What were they? I'm going to tell you right now. Number 1, the meeting. So Power Rangers was never a part of the Screen Actors Guild union in any of its incarnation and in any capacity. Not the actors, the crew, nobody. And because there were no union rules in place, everybody on the show often worked really long hours at an often breakneck pace for relatively low amounts of money. And you can kind of get away with that when you're working on a dinky little kid show that nobody expects to go anywhere, do anything, or have any kind of life beyond a couple of months. But when that dinky little show blows up and becomes the biggest thing in entertainment, you kind of expect to get a bigger piece of the pie, and that's what a lot of the actors in particular were looking for once the show blew up, because they were central to the whole thing. But Heim Saban, the big entertainment, music, media mogul that ran Saban Entertainment, the company that owned Power Rangers, famously did not want any part of the show to become unionized. This conflict between the company and the actors ultimately and famously led to 3 of the Ranger actors leaving the show in the middle of its second season. And in this book, Jason Narvey, the actor who played Skull, one of the comedic characters on the show, says that there was at one point a meeting between he, Paul Schreier, who played Bullock, the other comedic character on the show, and all the Ranger actors with Heim Saban. And in that meeting, according to Narvey, one of the Ranger actors had the gumption to flat out ask Heim Saban to his face about the show potentially going union. This book will tell you who that actor was, as well as what Saban's response was, although you probably have an indication of how it went. Incidentally, Jason Narvey comes off really well in this book, really articulate, really well spoken. When the book gets to Jason David Frank's death, the actor who played Tommy, Narvey sort of gets to eulogize him in a sense. It's almost an entire page. It's really touching. Number 2, Heim Saban. So Heim Saban is generally credited as being the creator of Power Rangers. Granted, it's a little more complicated and nuanced than that, but we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, Saban, of course, is a musician turned kids music producer, turned TV executive, turned billionaire. But yeah, in the very first chapter, this book starts things off with some of Saban's personal journey, how his family was forced to flee Egypt and live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Tel Aviv. And boy, wait till you hear who he had to share a communal bathroom with. It's not super extensive, but it does give you an idea of how this man's life kind of shaped him into this shrewd, perhaps even shady businessman. And you know, whether you love the guy or you hate him, you really can't deny his success and the fact that he was one of the people responsible for that initial creative spark that turned into Power Rangers. Number 3, who is Margaret Loesch? As a Power Rangers geek, I had heard the name Margaret Loesch before, and I kind of had a decent idea of what she did, but this book really gives her story some depth. And if Heim Saban is like the shrewd, hard-nosed father of Power Rangers, Margaret Loesch, according to this book at least, is like the nurturing, caring mother to the franchise. Margaret Loesch was the president of FCN, Fox Children's Network, in the early 90s, to whom Heim Saban pitched the show that would become Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, Power Rangers is, of course, made using footage from a Japanese TV show called Super Sentai, which is where all the spandex and rubber monster fighting comes from. And little did Saban know when he pitched the future Power Rangers show to Margaret Loesch that she had actually tried to get a very similar show made based on Super Sentai about a decade earlier, alongside someone that Marvel fans should be very familiar with. The book really indicates that Margaret Loesch, perhaps every bit as much as Heim Saban, really had to fight for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers against a lot of skeptical executives who just didn't understand it and didn't believe in it. But she believed in it and was determined to make it work. This book will show you how and why she did that. Number 4, the Twee-Trang Scientology Connection. So naturally, this book dives into who the original Power Ranger actors were, and of course we know that Twee-Trang wound up playing Trini, the Yellow Ranger. When the book dives into Twee-Trang's background, I was quite surprised to learn that there is a sliver of connective tissue between Twee-Trang and Scientology. Now, don't get me wrong, the book does not indicate that Twee was a Scientologist, although maybe she was, I don't know. But boy, is that a weird thing to learn 30 years later. And the book cites its sources, so you can see the evidence for yourself. Saying that out loud, it kind of makes me think of that Boy Meets World episode where Sean gets pulled into that cult. It just kind of makes you wonder what a similar episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers might have looked like. Number 5, numbers. Numbers aren't sexy. Sorry. But in a historical context, numbers and math are often important, and this book gives us that. For instance, this book tells us how much it cost to make the infamous pilot for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, as well as how much it cost to make an average episode. There's also box office info from all 3 Power Rangers movies, as well as ratings information for certain critical episodes, like the premiere episode and Food Fight, which immediately followed it, as well as White Light Part 2, the one where we learn Tommy is the White Ranger. It just gives you a sense of how big, or in some cases not big, splash Power Rangers made in popular culture. Number 6, the early creative process. As much as anything else, I really came away from this book with a renewed appreciation for those, let's say, first dozen episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and what it took to get those things across the finish line. We see the executive side of things from Margaret Loesch's perspective, of course, but then we also see the creative side of things. You know, writers, directors, editors, who were, of course, pivotal for a show like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And Ron Wasserman, too, who famously wrote Go-Go Power Rangers. The story of how Go-Go Power Rangers was conceived will shock you, frustrate you, and amaze you all at the same time, or at least it did me. Names like these, they're not marquee names, but I think as much as anybody else, these people, amongst others, really decided what Power Rangers looks like, sounds like, feels like, you know, what the show is, what the thing is. As much as anybody else, these people were the creators of Power Rangers, and they deserve to be celebrated for it. Number 7, Greg Bullock. Yeah, remember this guy? I do. Yeah, Greg Bullock played Lieutenant Stone for 3 seasons on Power Rangers. He was a cop turned private eye turned juice bar owner. Greg Bullock pretty much dropped off the map after Power Rangers Turbo. And while the book doesn't devote an extensive amount of time to him, it does tell you what he's been doing since then. And I appreciated that. That was interesting. Number 8. Space Rescue? As a Power Rangers fan, I've always been led to believe, more or less, that due to the tepid reception of Power Rangers Turbo and a decline in ratings, Power Rangers in Space, the 1998 season, was supposed to be the final season of the show. And then legend has it that because Power Rangers in Space was so good and the ratings went back up, the show continued on through 1998 into 1999. This book indicates that not everything I just said was necessarily true. That surprised me. I've always thought, like a lot of people, that Power Rangers in Space kind of saved the franchise. But I don't know, maybe that's just because Countdown to Destruction Part 2, the season finale to Space, just has such a series finale feel to it, given what happens to Zordon and all the villains. But one way or another, it looks like the Power Rangers were not going away. Number 9. The End of Time Force. Power Rangers Time Force, the 2001 season, is generally a favorite among fans, and I think some of that, at least, is because of the way the season ended with the multi-parter The End of Time. The season ends with Wes, the Red Ranger, having to say goodbye to the other 4 Rangers, including Jen, the Pink Ranger, who he's in love with, and they have a big, dramatic goodbye scene. It's definitely one of the more emotional moments in the show's history, despite the fact that Wes and Jen didn't kiss. They really should have. But what I never knew is that there was consideration, at least, for things not going down the way they did for Wes. Yeah, there was a big conflict, I guess, in the creative process, and one group of people saw things one way, and then somebody else saw things another way. I'm ultimately glad that the finale ended the way it did, but it's interesting to imagine how things could have gone. Number 10. Once a Ranger, always a Ranger. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, the TV special on Netflix that celebrated 30 years of the franchise, was flawed, but you know what? I loved it for what it was. That special, of course, introduced Charlie Kirsch as Min, Trini's daughter, who, of course, becomes the Yellow Ranger after Trini is killed in the special. But apparently, Charlie Kirsch's landing of that role was kind of sort of facilitated by a Power Rangers alumni. Specifically a member of the cast of Lightspeed Rescue, which I never would have called. It's nice to see Rangers helping Rangers. It's kind of like life imitating art in that sense. But yeah, folks, Morphenomenal, How the Power Rangers Conquered the World, is available now. I think it's destined to become one of the sacred texts of the Power Rangers franchise. And I'm not getting paid to say that. If I was, I'd have a much better setup than this. For more on the book, I encourage you to check out the interview I got to do with the author Joshua Moore, the link to which is in the description below. May the power protect you.